The planet had no name, just a number. 9 Theta. It drifted without orbit, starless, as if forgotten by gravity itself. Our scanners returned nothing. No magnetosphere, no radiation, no atmosphere, no heartbeat. But it wasn't dead. It was blank, still, like something erased the planet's past and left only the bones. Vorn should have called it off, but he didn't. We were 2 months past resupply. Bored, fractured, curious. Curiosity on a research vessel is just institutionalized hunger. Vorn was already unraveling, pacing like a caged animal, mumbling about legacy. A first discovery could secure him another decade of relevance. He overrode protocol and authorized descent. I didn't stop him. I watched the order blink on the nav console. Surface probe engaged. Descent vector confirmed. Deploying Viren landing sequence initiated. The ship groaned as if it knew better. We broke the upper shell of 9 Theta with a dull crack, like ice shearing under a boot. The impact shook the ICAM cockpit. Everyone braced. No one spoke. The ground didn't shudder. It breathed. We landed on a slope of what looked like white shale. Only closer, it wasn't stone. It was striated, porous, veined. Fossilized tissue, maybe. No sound came through the external mics. Just static. Even the absence of sound was noisy here. The first step onto the planet was Vorn's. I watched from the airlock, helmet sealed, vitals synced to telemetry. No anomalies, no radiation spikes, just silence and shapes. The floodlights bounced off frost-glazed surfaces, revealing lattice towers and coiled structures like spinal columns frozen mid-scream. All angled wrong, geometry without symmetry. I felt sick watching them. Not because they were alien, but because they looked intentional. By hour 3, we were hauling fragments aboard. A retrieval tether was secured to a spire embedded beneath the ice crust. It snapped halfway through hoisting, not because of pressure, because it exhaled. A vent opened along the spine, and a low hiss fogged the air. Vorn waved it off, said it was just decompression from a sealed structure. I wasn't sure. The tether was reinforced titanium. Whatever cracked it had force and timing. Still, we brought the fragment aboard, the size of a coffin, ivory-colored, with what looked like breathing holes. We sealed it in the sample locker. I remember pressing my gloved hand against the surface. Warm, too warm. And underneath, something moved, like a breath dragging slow against flesh. Comms went out 30 minutes later, not from the surface, from inside the Viren. First the intercom, then station telemetry. Our connection to nav went fuzzy, then blind. Logs reset, timers desynced, lights flickered. I watched our internal system map loop between 2 layouts, ours and something older. Wronger, like a bad memory trying to rewrite itself. I blamed the core, bad shielding, static interference from the spire. But I knew better. The moment the fragment crossed the threshold into our airlock, something changed. The ship changed. Or maybe it just remembered what it used to be. Vorn stayed in the lab. Alone. Said he was running density scans. I stayed in the observatory, watching the planet below us pulse, just barely, like lungs resisting their last breath. The spires reflected light from no source. We were in the dark, orbiting nothing, with illumination bending from an origin I couldn't calculate. I dozed off, for maybe 2 minutes, maybe 10. When I woke, the ship was dead quiet. No hum from the stabilizers, no thermal cycling from the life support grid, just cold metal and the sound of my own blood too loud in my ears. I stood. The lights dimmed, then surged, and the whisper came. Just once. Not a word. Not even a language, just intent. Felt rather than heard. A pressure in the back of my skull, like being remembered by something old. I rushed to the lab. The door was half open. The lights inside flickered in slow motion, like someone dragging a flashlight through water. The air stank, burned copper and stale breath. "Vorn?" I called. No answer, just soft dripping. I stepped inside. No blood, no Vorn, no damage to the locker. Only the locker door was open, and the sample was gone. I stared, trying to make sense of it. No alarm had triggered. The temperature in the lab was 2 degrees higher than regulation. Condensation formed on the ceiling, trembling with each flicker of the light. And where the sample had rested, only a faint smear of black film, thicker than oil, glittering faintly, almost cellular. The vent in the corner was open. It hadn't been earlier. I checked the seals myself. I walked to it, bent down, heard something shift inside, something wet. Backed away. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, not in rhythm with mine. I turned. Nothing. I ran system diagnostics. Every camera showed static. Every internal map rotated, glitched, then reset. The ship's AI, ELOX, responded, but with the wrong voice. Female, then childlike, then mine. Asked it to replay the lab feed. It refused, said the lab didn't exist. I opened the crew logs. There was no entry for Vorn, only me. Mission lead. Solo entry. I tried to override lockdown. The console hissed beneath my fingers. Warm, like skin. I tore my gloves off, hands trembling. My fingerprint failed authentication. Repeatedly, then the terminal pulsed, and accepted it anyway. Access granted. "Welcome back, Dr. Calder, but I never registered my print on that system." The whisper came again, clearer this time. Behind me, in my ear. I'm still breathing. I turned. There was no one there. Only the air vent. Still open. Dripping. Waiting. I backed away. I should have sealed it, called a red protocol. But I didn't. I walked out and locked the lab behind. He left Vorn, or what remained of him, inside, and when I reached the observation deck again, the planet was gone. No signal, no orbit trail, no data, just the black, and the soft sound of something breathing beneath the floor. When I turned back to the sample locker, it was open and empty. The Viran is quieter now. Not peaceful. Not still. Just quiet in the way a breathing body becomes before death. The hull groans at regular intervals. Long, aching sounds that echo down the steel arteries of the ship, like it's dreaming, or remembering. Condensation gathers on the ceiling, tiles dripping in rhythmic intervals onto the floor panels. It never used to do that. Our atmosphere controls were sealed tight, balanced. But now the walls sweat, like they're afraid of something just beyond the hull. I keep telling myself it's stress fractures, that the moaning is just thermal expansion, that the way the lights flicker is voltage fluctuation. But it's lying. The ship is lying, and I think it knows I know. Sparks found the smear first. He called me down to Junction C4, right between the hydroponics corridor and the comms spine. He didn't say much, just, "You're going to want to see this." It was about 3 meters long. The width of a spine. A slick trail of black-brown fluid, half congealed, half dried. Not oil, not blood, not anything the ship carried. The trail wasn't just on the floor panels. It was in them, melted slightly, warped, like something hot and alive had slithered across them. Sparks knelt beside it, visor down, flashlight steady. Whatever did this didn't walk. I stayed silent, stared at the end of the trail where it veered up the wall and disappeared into an open maintenance duct. The duct hadn't been opened in days. That's when the lights began flickering, first above the smear, then 2 meters down, then another 2, in sequence, like breadcrumbs, or a trail. Sparks muttered something about feedback. I didn't listen. I followed the lights. Slowly, flashlight off, listening to the hum beneath the panel shift like breathing. Metallic. Wet. They led me to medbay, which was wrong, because no one had been in medbay since we brought the sample aboard. After I locked the lab, no one had authorization, and no, one had reason. We hadn't had injuries, we hadn't had survivors. The door was open by 2 inches, not forced, just unlocked. Inside, the air was wrong. It stank of ozone and rotting teeth, chemical and biological at once, like burnt enamel and acid rain. The lights above buzzed with a slow, deep hum, like they were underwater. Their glow pulsed faintly across the med scanners and the vitals wall, highlighting a haze in the air. Mist, dust, spores. The walls, they bulged, not dented, not cracked. Bulged, as if something behind the paneling had swelled, pressing outward. The steel rippled ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly. A membrane, not a barrier. I stepped inside. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but curiosity, no, guilt, drove me forward. I passed the cryosink, the emergency injectors, the surgical frame, and stopped. There, against the far wall, slumped forward in a diagnostic chair, was Sparks. But I had just left him. I had left him 10 corridors back. I backed up a step, confused. "Sparks?" I whispered. No answer. I approached, slowly, my breath fogged inside the mask. His face wasn't right. His eyes were open, but empty. Not dead, vacant, as though whatever had used them had stepped out. His jaw. God. His jaw was gone. Not missing. Relocated. His mouth was on his neck, below the chin. Lips stretched sideways across his trachea like a zipper pulled too wide. And it was moving, muttering, repeating one phrase over and over in a voice too wet to be Sparks. "We remember the shape. We remember the shape. We remember..." I turned to run, and then the real Sparks came around the corner. He froze when he saw me. "Lyra? Why the hell are you..." His eyes shifted past me, to the thing wearing his face. I grabbed his arm. "Don't speak." He didn't. The thing in the chair stopped muttering. Its chest swelled. Once. Sharp. Then it stood. Not all at once. Like a puppet with delayed strings. Limbs moved in slow segments. Bones reordering themselves to fit. Its mouth unzipped with a wet hiss, and inside, there were no teeth. Only wires. We ran. We didn't speak. Not a word between us as we sprinted down the flickering corridor. The lights above us blinked in reverse from end to start. Like something following, catching up. The metal moaned again, louder, closer. The Viren was breathing, and the thing, it didn't chase. It watched, because it didn't have to run. It already knew where we would go. We sealed the med bay, or at least, we thought we did. By the time we reached the bridge, the schematics were wrong again. The deck layout shifted, labels flickered, doors connected to places that didn't exist. I pulled the internal feed, frame by frame. The medbay chair? Empty. No Sparks, no duplicate, just blood. Black, glittering, and on the wall behind it carved in symmetrical spirals. "Welcome back." I asked Sparks what he saw. He just stared at me, said, "I was never in medbay." That night I dreamt of the smear again. Only it wasn't a smear. It was a trail, leading toward a shape. Something upright, covered in wires, wearing my face. Sparks was inside the medbay, but his mouth wasn't where it used to be. We stopped pretending to sleep, and it wasn't worth it anymore. The lights never stay still long enough. The air in the quarters hums with static. No one dreams. Not safely. You either wake up choking or not at all. Lennox says she hears breathing in the vents, wet, rhythmic, shallow, like something waiting to exhale. She's not the only one. The vents whisper now. Not words, just presence. Like lungs too far down the ductwork. It paces at night. knuckles along the grates. One of the crew, Jarrell, tried sealing his vent with thermal foam. It melted into the metal overnight. Seamless. No trace. I asked him how it happened. He just shook his head and said, "You can't block a throat when you're already inside it." I stopped trusting sound. I watch the feeds now. The only thing I still believe. Every camera, every corridor, every overlapping line of sight I can grid onto the internal display. Most of them are just static now, a smear of gray and black as if the ship is trying to scrub its own memory. But cargo hold B still has a feed, still rolls on the old loop, motion triggered at 30-second intervals. I pulled the last 12 hours, frame by frame, hour by hour. The first 3 hours, nothing. Just empty shelves, sealed crates, the dull strobing of backup lights. At Aero 148, one of the supply doors creaks open by itself. That's not unusual. Pressure variance. Thermal pop. At O231, a low shape passes across the far corner. Blurry. Four-limbed. Crawling too close to the floor for comfort. The cameras don't track it, but it leaves a smear, like dragged skin. Then at O316 the footage glitches. It skips, 4 frames, freezes, resets, then plays again. Same timestamp. But something's wrong this time. A crate that wasn't open is a shadow that wasn't there, moves, and in the corner, up high, nestled against the ceiling vent, is a face. Not visible, not directly. Not a jump scare, just presence. Like the camera is seeing something the human eye isn't allowed to comprehend in full. A suggestion of eyes. Of skin stretched wrong. Of Spark's face, but melted. As if it remembered being him once. I paused the feed, enhanced it, isolated the quadrant, and that's when it looked back. Not as in turned toward me, I mean it looked through the lens, through the terminal, right into me. Like it knew I'd be watching at that exact moment. I slammed the console shut. It kept playing, not through the screen but through the wall, faint, looped audio, my voice over and over. "Why did you bring it aboard, Lyra? Why did you let it in?" I ran diagnostics again, same result as yesterday. No anomalies, hull integrity, nominal, life support, stable, camera feed error, none. But the vents still hiss. The steel still breathes, and the feed still flickers at 0316. I checked medbay's feed next. I shouldn't have. The log showed last access by me, which is impossible. I haven't gone back since we sealed it. The file directory listed a clip for 04 Agro. Auto-labeled, subject, Dr. Calder OBS. There is no subject folder for me. I opened it anyway. The feed blinked, once, twice. The screen went black, then lit, medbay empty. Then movement from the far surgical tray, just a shift of shadow. I leaned closer. There was someone sitting in the diagnostic chair. Head down, hair like mine, posture like mine. The lights flickered, and then they looked up. It was me. Not a mirror, not a reflection. Me, sitting in the chair, staring, dead into the lens, but something was off. Not just the eyes. They were too wide, unblinking, too glossy like water over glass. But worse than that, the smile. It didn't belong to me. It was calm, knowing. Like I'd already confessed everything. Like it had been waiting for me to find it. I blinked. The feed stuttered, and when it cleared, I was gone. The chair was empty again, but carved into the panel behind it, still faintly steaming. "Don't look for us, you're already here." I shut the feed down, killed power to the medbay node, sealed the bulkhead 3 layers deep. Then I went to the bridge, where Sparks was waiting. "Cargo hold B?" he asked, without looking at me. I nodded. He didn't move, just kept watching the internal map rotate, flickering, distorting, breathing. He whispered, "It wants us to watch. It shows us things to keep us still, like prey, like it's studying us." I didn't answer, because he was right, and because behind him the screen blinked. Medbay. just for a second. Enough to show my eyes again. Too wide, too glossy. Watching, from inside the feed. I blinked. The camera feed showed my own eyes, watching from inside, the medbay. We'd been hearing the noises in the galley for days, soft creaks like bones shifting inside the bulkhead. At first we chalked it up to the ship cooling unevenly. Pressure variance, metal fatigue, the usual lies we told ourselves, but Jun stopped eating, and that wasn't like her. She was the last one still optimistic, still organizing rations, still reciting systems checks out loud like they meant anything anymore. But in the last 48 hours, she withdrew. Her voice got flat. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She kept rubbing the base of her spine, scratching, like something itched inside her bones. I found her in engineering, crouched beside the coolant panel, mouth moving silently, eyes unfocused. Her helmet was off, her jumpsuit collar soaked with sweat. I knelt beside her, but she didn't look up. "Jun?" I whispered. "What are you doing down here?" She whispered back, without turning. "It's warm in the walls. It likes the cold places, but it's warm here. It's moving slower now, but not gone." My throat tightened. "What is?" She smiled at nothing. "You know." I reached for her shoulder. She screamed, not like fear, not like pain, like something inside her was trying to break free through her mouth. She collapsed, seizing. Her body arched violently like her spine was fighting itself. Her fingers clawed at the floor. Her skin split at the joints, seams along her arms, across her ribs, down the length of her back. No blood. No flesh. Just oil. Black, viscous, threaded with silver and metal. Tiny wires, tubes, lattices, like roots, growing in reverse, pushing out. Her eyes rolled back. Her mouth opened wide, and something inside her throat began speaking. Not screaming. Speaking. Words I couldn't understand. Rhythmic. Monotone. Like a machine learning how to pray. I stood, and I locked the door behind me. She screamed again, louder this time. Then, crack. A sound like splitting ice. Then silence. The soundproofing of the maintenance bay is good. I didn't hear the wet parts, just the dull hum of the reactor above me and the soft skitter of something against metal. It took 27 minutes before I returned. By then, Jun's body was... no, not her body. It was hollow, as if she'd been scooped out from the inside. Only the shape remained, like heat-melted plastic. Her spine was still intact. But it wasn't bone anymore. It was machined, spun like carbon filament, in a pattern I didn't recognize, like language, like a design. I told the others she suffocated, said her lungs collapsed from stress. The ship's oxygen scrubbers were failing. They believed me, mostly because no one wants another reason to panic, and because no one wants to admit we're breathing something we shouldn't be. Later that night I returned alone. I told myself I was checking for contamination, but it wasn't that. I needed to hear it again. I knelt by what was left of her and whispered, "What did you say?" I didn't expect an answer, but I got one, from inside my head. Jun's voice, soft, but not hers, not entirely, warped, echoed. "You brought it back with you. We never left?" I stumbled back, bile rising. Her mouth was closed, but something beneath. Her skin twitched, just once. A coil, then stillness. I sealed the room permanently. No logs, no report, no alert, just metal over the door, welded, buried, because I know what I saw, and I know it's not dead. It didn't kill her. It wore her. The next morning, Sparks asked where Jun was. I told him she took her own life. He stared at me, unblinking, too long, then nodded. But I saw his hand, gripping the table, shaking, not from grief, from recognition. That night, someone opened the sealed corridor again. I know because I heard it on the internal sensor logs. But the The feed shows it never happened. And Jun, she's still listed as active in the crew registry. I tried to override her status. The terminal said, biometric signature present. I asked where. The screen flashed once. Medbay. Of course, I haven't gone down there, not yet. But sometimes, when the ship goes quiet, I hear her breathing again. In the vents, behind the walls. Too wet. Too close. June's last words weren't hers. You brought it back with you. We never left. Deck 4 doesn't exist. Officially, it was part of the original Virain schematic, years before launch. An unfinished sub-level abandoned mid-construction after a design flaw in the ship's structural cross-bracing. The deck was never pressurized. No power lines routed there, no atmosphere seal. It was left skeletal. Just ribs of alloy and darkness, or that's what I always believed. Until the lift opened this morning. No one called it. No one touched the control panel. But when the doors hissed apart, the screen read, Destination Deck 4 active. We stared at it too long. 5 of us, me, Sparks, Lennox, Reese, and Captain Vorn. No one said it out loud, but I think we were all thinking the same thing. If the ship wants you to go somewhere, maybe you already have. The descent was too long. The Virain only has 6 decks top to bottom, but the lift kept sinking. Reese said it was just a glitch. Phantom floors, he called them. A quirk in the system's logic tree, but I counted every second. And we passed through 12 floors, maybe more. By the time the doors opened, we were already holding our breath. The hallway was ours. Our walls. Our markings. The same scratched panel near the diagnostics lab. Even the same dent Lennox made with her tool cart 3 weeks ago. But dustless. Pristine. As if the deck had been waiting for us to return to it. Or like we had never left. I walked ahead of the group. The walls breathed. Here, subtly, the light panels flickered with a dull pulse like capillaries pulsing light instead of blood. The air felt warmer, closer, too close, like lungs pressed against mine from behind the walls. That's when I saw the first thing. A photo. Taped to the wall low, knee height, a Polaroid, black and white, curled at the edges, me smiling, in my old Earthside lab coat, holding a sample tube that didn't exist. On the back, day 147, we're almost done. But this mission hadn't been that long, only 63 days in. Then Sparks found a page, folded, neatly, tucked into the slot where Deck 4's fire alarm should have been. His handwriting, an engineering checklist dated next month, but with his own blood type stamped in the corner. He's A+. The hallway widened, turned left. Then again. We passed through a chamber none of us had ever seen before. Open, round, ribbed with curved architecture. Alien. Not part of Virain's design. Vorn said it was heat-warped, that the steel just looked different under distress. But it wasn't stress, it was intention. Every bend, every arc, every unnatural angle, like the inside of a skull carved by something that never needed eyes. And then, the room. A door opened without prompting. Inside, light, soft, gold. We stepped through. The space beyond it shouldn't have fit inside the Virain. Not spatially, not logically, and yet, rows of rooms, each one identical to ours. Cabins, storage, even the infirmary, but filled with our things, not replicas. Ours, Lennox found her old necklace lost years ago during a field mission on Europa, still tangled the same way. Reese found his daughter's drawing, burned in a fire back on Earth. I found my notebook, the one I left in a lab 2 ships ago, torn, oil-stained. Only this one had new pages, filled with writing, my writing. But I never wrote these entries. Subject active. Containment has failed. Mirrors no longer hold. They are leaking into thought. Seal the doors. Do not trust the walls. I looked to the others. Their hands trembled. Their faces, pale, uncertain. Like the room was chewing memories out of them one by one. Then Captain Vorn stepped into the final chamber. We followed. It was an archive, a simple console at its center, dustless, screen flickering dim blue. No power cord, just on. He touched the interface. It didn't ask for credentials. It welcomed him. Captain Vorn. Access granted. He flinched, then pressed play. A log began to play, audio only. Our voices, all of us, panicked, screaming, crying, footsteps, static, something crawling. Then, containment breach, multiple vectors, unknown biomass receding. We didn't build this room. We didn't build any of it. Burn the air. Seal the memories. If you're hearing this, you've looped again. I stepped back. Vorn didn't. His hands shook as he scrolled. And then he found it. Mission log. Viren 6. Date. Oro 6. 17. 2Z. 8 6 years from now. Same crew. Same ship. But recorded. Pages of entries all signed by him. Each one more fragmented than the last. Each one ending with the same sentence. The ship is remembering what we forgot to become. He looked at me. Eyes hollow. I never wrote these. No, I said. Not yet. We backed out of the archive. The hallway behind us was different. The dent Lennox made? Gone. The scratches near the diagnostics lab? Changed direction. And in place of the original lift, just a corridor that led deeper, longer, descending without stairs. We didn't speak. Not until the lights began dimming in rhythm. Low pulse. A heartbeat. Not ours. Not human. Reset it first. Maybe this isn't a memory room. We turned. What do you mean? He stepped back, face pale, eyes wide. Maybe it's a memory organ. Captain Vorn found a record of the mission log, dated 6 years into the future. I don't know what day it is. I've stopped counting the rotations, mostly because the stars don't match anymore. Every time I check the nav map, the constellations are wrong. Not slightly, completely. Orion is missing. Vega's burning blue in the wrong quadrant, and the rogue planet, the one we landed on, gone. Not out of range, not obscured, just no longer in the system. But we haven't moved. Thrusters are cold. Drift trajectory is stable. Internal gravity hasn't shifted, so either the universe is lying, or the ship is. I ran diagnostics again. 5th time this week. Nav core. Offline stellar sync. Lost chronodrift. Unstable estimated loop duration. Error. That last one always flashes red. Error. 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 The logs keep recycling. Timestamps repeat. The ship's internal clock resets every 18 hours. Meal cycles restart, doors relock themselves. Storage bins refill, then empty, then refill again. We're stuck in a circuit. But we're still changing, which means something else is riding over us as we loop. Sparks was the first to notice the food rot. He opened a ration pack, date stamped, the night before. Inside, mold, thick, green-black, pulsing. I opened the same pack an hour later. It was untouched. Sealed. Perfect. Reese recorded himself entering the same room 3 times. The footage matched, until the 3rd loop. In that version, he didn't blink. At all. Then he turned to the camera. And smiled. Reese doesn't smile, anymore. I haven't told the others what I found in Cryo 3, because I don't know how to explain finding myself. It was sometime during the 2nd loop, maybe 3rd. I couldn't sleep. The vents were whispering again. I wandered into cryo out of instinct. Cold mist curling at the base of the chamber. The lights hummed low. No reason to be there. The pod was already open. That's what made me stop. All the pods are sealed unless assigned. Yet one, Cryo 3, was unlatched. Frost melting off the lid. I stepped closer and saw me, not breathing, frozen, rigid. Crystals forming along my brow, but it was my face, my scar over the left temple, the micro ink line on my neck from an old med scan. The eyes were open, wide torn out, just sockets, hollow, frozen, staring. The mouth was stretched mid-scream, frozen in place, lips cracked, like I died begging. I didn't tell the others. I shut the pod, marked it damaged, but the next morning, the log said Cryo 3 had never been opened. And when I went back, empty, clean, unused. But I swear I still smell my own breath in the frost. Reese came to me last night, asked if I'd seen him elsewhere. I pretended not to understand. He nodded slowly. There's a version of me in engineering. Always 10 seconds ahead. He tapped the back of his skull. It walks first, then I follow. I can feel it stretching behind my eyes. The ship isn't drifting anymore, it's remembering. Each deck groans differently now. The halls rearrange themselves slightly, subtly. Door frames tilt by millimeters. Panels pulse with warmth when you get too close. I walked past my quarters and heard my own voice whisper from inside. I wasn't in there. Time isn't linear here. It bends, repeats, frays at the edge. But the entity, the thing we brought up from the planet, it's not stuck. It's navigating. It knows how to move. Between loops. How to wear us. I tested it. Left my jacket on hook 4 outside the galley. Next loop, it was gone. Loop after that, I found it already on me, still warm. I hadn't worn it in days. The crew doesn't trust the mirrors anymore. Sparks smashed his. Lennox covered hers in duct tape. They say reflections are starting to show things we haven't done yet. I believe them, because today, I looked into the corridor window and saw myself. Walking past, calm, steady. Same uniform, same jacket, but I was still standing still, breath caught in my throat, paralyzed. My double turned the corner, gone. No one else saw, but the window stayed warm, like something pressed its face to the glass. I don't know how many versions of me exist now, how many loops I've started, or ended, but I can feel something moving closer. Not just through the ship, through me. A second spine, a second breath, a second thought that isn't mine. I haven't told anyone yet, because I don't know if the thing watching from the glass is still me, or if I'm just a placeholder, until the real version comes back. I watched myself walk past the corridor window, but I was still standing still. Lennox didn't answer the comms. Not that we expected her to. She hadn't spoken in days. Not since the last loop reset, and her hand came back wrong. The skin along her forearm had turned semi-translucent. Veins running in unnatural geometric patterns like circuitry mapped in living tissue. She said she felt static when she touched metal. Yesterday, she stopped using her hands entirely. Today, she stopped using her voice. We found her in the reactor, corridor fused to the floor, not slumped, not collapsed, fused, kneeling upright, hands resting flat against the deck like in prayer, skin stretched tight, wires sprouting from her fingertips. Some were ours, bundles from the ventilation duct. Others were new, organic, metallic, breathing. Her spine arched back in slow pulses, as if something behind the bone was flexing. Her mouth hung open, lips cracked, tongue stiff. Reese called out to her. She blinked, just once, then screamed, not in pain. In language, a sound poured out of her like boiling oil across a steel grate. Staccato syllables. Guttural, ancient, a dialect not made for a human mouth. It echoed through the chamber like it belonged to the ship. Reese staggered back, covered his ears. I stepped closer, and I swear to God, the lights dimmed in rhythm with her voice. We tried to cut her free. A plasma knife. Surgical arc cutter. The moment the blade touched her arm, the ship screamed. Not Lennox. The ship. A deep groan, reverberating through the hull, rattling the wall joints, shivering in our teeth. Then the comms burst alive. All channels, simultaneous. Our voices, all of us, speaking. At once, words we never recorded. We are the breath, we are the bone. You walked into your echo. Now you belong. Reese dropped the knife. Lennox stopped speaking. She was still breathing. But the wires tightened. We backed out of the corridor and sealed it. It's easier than admitting she's still alive in there. Easier than accepting she might not be the first, or the last. The air tastes like iron now. Heavy. Sharp. Like something metallic is being bled from the vents. My teeth ache when I breathe too deep. Spark says he's coughing up flecks of copper. I haven't told him I found a sliver of wire in my own saliva this morning. I ran a scan on myself. I shouldn't have. It started with pressure in my back. At first I thought it was stress. Spine pain. Normal under duress. Then I felt it. Movement. Not muscular. Not twitching. Deliberate. Like something beneath my skin was counting vertebrae. Pressing gently against each one. Measuring. The med scanner beeped. Then beeped again. Misread, I told myself. I restarted the scan, and there it was. Anomaly detected. Spinal column. Duplicate formation, initiated growth phase. 12% tissue. Type, unknown. Composite, organic, alloy hybrid. Stared at the screen. Felt my legs go cold. Another spine, growing beside the one I was born with. Coiling, integrating, nesting inside me. No pain, just the slow, creeping realization. I'm not being replaced. I'm being updated. I didn't show anyone. The results. What would I say, that I'm not human anymore, that maybe I never really was? I checked the crew scans, the ones we did weeks ago. Reese, Sparks, Vorn, Lennox. They're all showing traces, small at first. Fragments, errors in the scans, skipped vertebrae, density misreads, light interference around joints. Now I understand. The ship's not killing us. It's installing us. Reese has stopped talking much. He spends hours alone with his hands in the wall panels. Listening. Not working. Just listening. I caught him yesterday muttering code sequences that aren't part of the ship's operating language. He doesn't remember saying anything. Sparks is worse. He sleepwalks now, always toward the bridge. I tried restraining him. The straps frayed overnight, no sign of force, just worn through, like something helped. None of us sleep properly. We feel things shift under the floor. Sometimes inside us. We try to ignore the way the lights dim when we speak the wrong words. But we know. The Viran is no longer a ship. It's a womb. And we are being gestated. I dream in wires now, nerves braided into circuits, bones hollowed and filled with coolant. My voice, split through intercom static, screaming a name I haven't learned yet. It's inside me. Growing. I looked in the mirror this morning. The reflection was a frame behind. Slight delay. Then it smiled. I didn't. The med scanner shows a second spinal column growing inside me. We buried Jensen on day 3. Not a proper burial, just sealed him in Cryo 9. His body was half charred, lungs blackened from the coolant leak in engineering. Sparks and Reese carried him. I logged the death. Vorn said a few words that didn't matter. Remember the smell. Melted plastic. Boiled skin. I remember Jensen's hand, what was left of it, curling tight even after he was dead. Reflex, I thought. Maybe a final spasm, maybe not. This morning, Lennox found him in corridor D3, standing clothes, unburned, skin whole. But it wasn't him. She dragged us down there without a word. We found him near the bulkhead, facing the wall, hands clasped behind his back like he was waiting for instructions. The lights overhead flickered in steady rhythm, like breath. He turned when we approached, same face, same eyes. Only, the eyes weren't alive. They reflected too much light, no moisture, no movement in the pupil. Like someone had painted them on wet glass and forgotten to blink. Reese whispered, "Jensen, It smiled. Not politely. Perfectly. Exactly the way Jensen smiled when we joked about rerouting the mess hall. Filters. Right down to the slight twitch in his left cheek, but there was no warmth behind it, just performance. Then it spoke. Yeah. Filters are bugged again. Water tastes like glue. The sentence hit like a dropped wrench. That was my voice. Not just words I remembered saying. My exact phrasing, tone, timing. The hitch in my throat when I said, again. A playback. Not a conversation. Spark stepped forward. Who are you? Jensen blinked, then shifted. Not just posture, entire form. Subtle. The hair lengthened, jaw narrowed, shoulders tilted inward, and then it spoke again. This time, with Reese's voice. We shouldn't have brought it up. We didn't ask what it was, we just opened the door. The exact words Reese had whispered in his bunk 2 nights ago. Vorn raised his weapon. Jensen's double didn't move. Didn't resist. Just smiled again. Too wide, too clean. He fired. Twice. Center mass. Jensen staggered, stumbled, but didn't fall. Instead, he opened his mouth and no sound came out. Only static. Like corrupted audio playing through torn speakers, high-pitched, glitching, clipped laughter wrapped in white noise. The lights above us exploded, one by one. Pop, 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 plunging. The corridor into black. I pulled my light. The beam swept across the far wall. Empty. Jensen was gone. So was the blood. Only the static remained, low, buzzing from the wall panels, crawling into the back of my skull. We pulled back to the bridge. Locked. Down deck 2. Vorn didn't speak. He sat with his hands folded, staring at the blank monitor. His pulse readout was spiking, green lines jumping like teeth on the edge of a scream. I tried to check his vitals. He waved me off. I said, "That wasn't Jensen." He said nothing. I added, "It's learning." Still nothing. Then, softly, I think it always knew. That night I heard footsteps outside my room. Measured. Slow. Familiar. I checked the hallway cam. No one there. But the feed kept freezing. One frame stuck over and over again. Vorn, sitting at the console. His face expressionless. His lips moving. In looped silence, I went to the bridge. He was still there, motionless until I stepped closer. Then he turned, too fast, like he'd been waiting. "Lyra," he said. His voice was hoarse, distant. "I need you to look at something." I nodded. He turned the monitor toward me. The screen displayed internal scans of his face. Tissue density, dermal layer, muscle mass. And underneath, metal, not implants. Growth. Fine threads of alloy weaved through the jaw, pooled around the base of the skull. Almost like a framework being installed. "I didn't authorize this," he said. I replied, "I don't think you had to." Then the lights dimmed again. The screen flickered, and Vorn stood up. Except, he didn't, because he was still sitting. Same posture, same clothes, but now he was also standing. 2 of him, one still, one moving. The standing version turned to me. Its skin rippled slightly at the edges, as if being held together by tension, not bone, and then it smiled. "We all come back eventually." It stepped closer. Vorn rose, the original, I think, and backed away. He raised his weapon again. "Don't," I whispered. But he pulled the trigger point blank straight to the face. The bullet hit, and the face melted. Not exploded, not torn, melted like wax under a slow flame. First the eyes, then the nose, then the lips, dripping away in lines of silver and ash. But the mouth kept moving, speaking, mimicking. Even with no lips, no skin, no structure, just movement. It whispered, "We are already wearing you." And then, the face was Vorn's again. He dropped the gun, stepped back, mouth open, and the other Vorn stepped forward. Not fast, just close. Close enough that I couldn't tell which one was which anymore. Vorn's face melted off, but he kept talking. I think I'm the last one, or maybe I was the first, or maybe I never existed at all. The Virain doesn't keep clean records anymore. The logs are recursive. Dates dissolve when I check them. Names reshuffle. Sometimes mine isn't there, sometimes it's the only one. The ship says we're still 6, then 2, then 93. I don't recognize any of the names. The corridors echo differently now. Not from sound, from presence. A half-second delay between my footfall and its reflection. A breath in my ear when I exhale. Shadows stretched longer than light should allow. I stopped sleeping days ago. Maybe weeks. I'm not sure time still passes. Not the way it used to. The food doesn't rot anymore. Because it already has. The bridge is mostly dark now. The stars outside don't spin. They shudder. Like something's shaking the glass from the other side. I've sent the distress signal 16 times. That I remember. Every time I change the wording. Every time I beg differently. I plead with command to recall us. To burn the tether. To isolate the loop and erase our return vector. But the signal always resets. The terminal flashes green, and, beside the panel, carved into the wall in handwriting that matches my own, do not send this message. I sent it anyway. I always send it, even when I know it doesn't go anywhere, even when I know what happens next. Last time, the console screamed, not mechanically, humanly. It screamed like a man being skinned alive, but underwater, muffled, gurgling, and then it played the message back. This is Dr. Lyra Calder of the Viren. We've breached an unknown entity, non-Euclidean, recursive, memory parasitic. We require full lockdown and orbital erasure. Repeat. But here's the problem. I hadn't spoken yet. I hadn't recorded the message. Not this version, not this loop. The ship is ahead of me now, or I'm behind it. Either way, it's thinking in circles I can't follow. It rewrites the past, fills in gaps with predictions. With me. I've seen myself 6 times now, in reflection, in surveillance feeds, in window glare, in motion capture drift, always delayed by seconds, always watching. The last time, I caught one smiling, not because it was happy, because I wasn't. Today, I found myself walking the observation ring, but I was in the engine room. I saw my body, identical fingertips brushing the frost on the glass. Silent. Still. Didn't approach. Because I know it would have turned, and I don't know what I would have said to me. I returned to the bridge. Rebooted the external beacon. It asked for credentials. I typed in mine. Access denied. Then, welcome back, Lyra. The voice wasn't synthetic, it was mine. The console screen flickered and showed me, recording the same message I was about to send. Same posture, same breath, same fear in my voice. This is Dr. Lyra Calder of the Viren. We've breached. I stopped. Backed away from the panel, the playback continued. Something old, something recursive were being rewritten. The message ended. The console blinked. Sent, but I hadn't touched the button. I looked under the terminal, scratched into the alloy, barely visible beneath the frost. Don't trust the one in the hall. She smiles too easily. I turned slowly. The corridor behind me was empty, except for the sound of footsteps. Mine. But I was standing still. The screen lit again. New message queued. Same voice, same script, different timestamp. 1 hour from now. I sat down. Let it play. This is Dr. Lyra Calder. Don't come for us. The ship isn't a vessel. It's a recording. And we're the data. We've been copied too many times. The original's gone. If you see this, burn your ears. I stared at my own eyes. They looked calm. Too calm. Like they'd already given up. I tried to delete the message. The system locked me out. Message went out anyway. Even though the comms grid is dead, even though we're not transmitting to anything, even though I'm not sure we exist anymore. I found the others again, or what's left of them. Vorn is a shadow in the storage bay. Doesn't move, doesn't blink, just watches from the darkest corner. Sparks is integrated into the nav core, not metaphorically, physically. He talks in pulses now, Morse through the coolant pumps. Last thing he told me was, "I am not Sparks, I am remembering him." And Reese? He walks in circles through the same corridor, one loop, always behind me. He hums an old Earth song. Out of tune, too slow. With no mouth. There's no exit anymore. No shuttle, no airlock override, no path back to the planet. And even if there were, it wouldn't matter. We brought it aboard, and it brought us inside it. I don't know what the Viren is now, but I think the ship doesn't fly. It dreams, and we are the dreamers, who never woke up, just echoes. Played back louder each time, until we become the signal. The message played back in my voice, but I hadn't spoken yet. I did everything protocol told me to do. I sealed the lower decks. I burned the labs. I deleted the logs. I wiped the internal AI. I even locked down my own biometric access just in case I wasn't me anymore. None of it mattered, because the whisper never stopped. It started as a hum, low, mechanical, like a forgotten fan spinning in the belly of the ship. Then came the phrase, soft at first, barely there, like a memory recited underwater. Orthelum, Kaldurian, Orthelum, Kaldurian. I don't know what it means, but I know what it does. We found it carved into the underside of the spire, that first structure, the thing we thought was dormant. We etched it into the transmission key to mark the sample for containment. Vorn said it was symbolic. Like a chain, he joked. Old gods sealed by old names. Now I can't stop saying it, even though I can't remember the exact syllables anymore. The words are gone, but I feel them writhing inside me, like code etched into nerve endings. I think it's what kept me alive, if that's what I am now. My skin doesn't bruise anymore. I tested it, took a scalpel to my thigh, dragged it clean through. No blood, just a thin line of black dust. Then it sealed again. The med scanner says my internal temperature is 32.1 degauss, too low, too steady. And my heartbeat doesn't sync to my breath anymore because I don't think they're connected anymore. There's no one else left. Not truly. Vorn dissolved into the airlock last night. Stepped in, sealed it. But the cameras showed. Nothing, just silence, then static. Then the words scratched into the airlock glass. He returned to the archive. Sparks hasn't spoken in 12 days. His body's still in engineering, split open like a circuit board. I thought he was dead, until the lights in the nav core began blinking in his eye pattern. Reese is a shape now, a sound. I hear him echo in the pipes, a laughing cough in the coolant system. Once the oxygen tank vented Morse code that spelled his name over and over. I think I'm alone, but only in the way a recording is alone. I still go to the bridge, not to pilot, just to exist somewhere, fixed, somewhere with a window, but the stars are gone now, wiped from the screen, nothing but black fog and the flicker of my own reflection in the glass. Even that's begun to change. Yesterday I saw my mouth move before I spoke. I keep hearing something shift behind the walls. Not walking, not crawling, positioning, as if it's waiting for me to forget I'm being watched, or that I'm the one watching. I triggered the emergency purge, vaporized everything below Deck 3, turned the sample vault to ash, deleted every remaining data packet. The screen confirmed the sequence. Containment breach purge, successful. But 5 minutes later, the data was back. Same files, same size, same timestamp. Only the title of the primary log had changed. Dr. Calder, version 13. I tried to erase it again, but the keyboard had no backspace. I walked to my quarters, numb. There's nothing left to search, nothing left to fix, just the whisper. Louder now, it doesn't ask anymore, it reminds, it tells me what I've already done. You called us. You opened the bone. You are the answer to the wrong question. The mirror was sealed behind the panel. Standard containment protocol. No reflections, no loops, but I wanted to see. I needed to see. Not my face, just something real. I pulled the panel open. The glass behind it was fogged, smudged, breathing. And there, just beyond the mist, something watched me, eyes like mine, but deeper, unblinking, smiling. I leaned in. I wanted to ask if it remembered me, but I didn't need to, because it already knew, because I'd never left, because maybe I never existed to begin with. Just a loop, a copy, a whisper in synthetic skin, message built to scream then forget. The thing behind the glass pressed closer, fleshless, familiar, and whispered in my voice. Welcome